everybody. This is Nicole from the past, and I just wanted to come in and let you know that today's podcast is going to be longer than what my normal podcasts are. And it's just because I haven't podcasted for a while, and it's going to be a little bit longer. So if you wanted to jump around in parts, I'm letting you know that you may have to if you just want to get to the knitting content. And if you want to hear everything that's going on, feel free to stay. So here's Nicole of the future. Hello, everybody, and welcome to Nicole O's World Podcast. Welcome. If you are a new and returning viewer, thank you so much for checking me out. If you're a returning viewer, thank you so much for coming back as always. If you're a new viewer, thank you so much for checking me out. You'd think at episode 80 I'd have this down pat. Anyways, today is Sunday, August 19th, 2018, and I'm your host, Nicole, also known as Nikki18229 everywhere on the interwebs. If you listen to the intro, you will hear that this is going to be a longer than expected podcast. Alright, I'm going to warn you, first of all, I have a gorgeous, if you have earbuds in, I have a gorgeous 1-year-old boxer named Z. He may or may not make an appearance, and he is a very vocal dog, just so you know. Alright, episode 80. I know, a lot has gone on since I recorded in 9 months. 9 months ago, November 14th, I believe, was the last time that I recorded. And a lot has gone on. And not that, you know, if you'd like to know what's going on, especially if you don't follow me on Facebook and Instagram, you obviously don't know. Well, back in November and December, I suffered terrible with my teeth. I had a very bad abscess tooth, and here they come to find out it was more than one tooth that was infected. And I had to have a couple teeth removed in December, so I didn't feel like podcasting because I didn't really feel like talking because my mouth hurt. And I doubt you guys wanted to see me with my face all swollen because it looked like somebody beat me up because I had I had 2 teeth taken out. Back on January the 22nd of this year, my dad had a stroke due to having a heart valve problem, and he had to have brain surgery done and to remove the clots from the brain because the medication that they gave him to break up the clots was not helping it. So he had brain surgery done, and he was able, right after they did the surgery, to start moving the right side of his body again, which was wonderful. However, when they took him up to ICU, while he was in ICU, he had an AFib heart attack, also called an atrial fibrillation heart attack. Not due to any heart blockages. It was something that happened. They suspect it may be that he had atrial fibrillation all along, and none of the tests picked it up. But they gave him medicine to stop it. He was in the hospital about 2, maybe 3 weeks. His recovery was amazing. He went from the day of having the stroke to the day after when I went to see him. He was awake, he was alert, he was oriented, but he wasn't able to get his words out. It was mumbled, you couldn't understand him. And of course that had him bummed. And then the following day, it was the first day after the stroke, the second day after the stroke, all the therapies came in. And he was mad because he couldn't get his words out. Of course, the only words that came out clear were the naughty words. I'm not going to repeat them, but I try to keep this family friendly, but all you guys know what the naughty words are. And they just started working with him, and by I'd say the end of that week, by Friday, he was up walking around. He was speaking clearer. He wasn't having as much trouble getting his words out. By the time he left, he was in ICU for maybe 4, maybe 5 days, and they transferred him for one day, just one day, to a what they call a medical surgical floor, and then from there he was sent to a rehabilitation unit at the hospital, and he was there for maybe a week before he got sent home. He had great care, great therapy. They couldn't get over how well he was recovering. From February until May, we had stroke rehab done on an outpatient basis, and I've had a lot of people message me and say, oh, well, you should have got a lot of knitting done while he was in the hospital. Yeah, no, not when you're stressed. You don't really want to knit. I maybe got a dishcloth, maybe 2 dishcloths done. Yeah, your life just changes. He has since made a full recovery from his stroke. He stutters every now and then, and some words he has a hard time getting out. But they said that's just temporary. It should go away. He has full use of the right side of his body. He's able to work again, drive. Like some dexterity of grabbing things he doesn't have full coordination of yet, but they said that's expected and it'll come back. And I want to thank everybody in the crafting community that sent me prayers and well wishes and thank yous. Thank you guys so much. I never felt I have been so blessed, and I just don't know how to thank you guys for that, because without your support, as well as some friends and a few family, I don't know how we would have got through the last couple months without it. In May of this year, on May 3rd, my dad had to go in for a heart valve replacement. He had to have his heart valve replaced. And they also went in and did a procedure to stop the atrial fibrillation called a maze procedure. So he's currently going through cardiac rehabilitation for that. Everything is going okay. But that is basically why I have not been podcasting. Things have been chaotic. I've just been in a funk. And in between all of that issues, I had my own issues where I started problems with my right hand. If you guys previously remember, I had carpal tunnel done on it almost 2 years ago. I'm having issues with my right finger, my naughty finger as I call it, getting stuck underneath, and pain going to my elbow, not being able to bend my fingers. So I really haven't knit much. And honestly, I quite haven't felt like knitting. I'm sorry, that's my grandma yelling at my dog. Bubby! I'm sorry. Sorry about that. He woke grandma up. Yeah, I just haven't felt like knitting, and there was no reason to have a podcast because there's have not been much knitting content. So yeah, that's what's been going on, and I've just been getting back in the swing of things again. And podcasting, I've been picking up knitting. A lot of changes, like I said, have been going on in my life. So yeah, and there's going to be some changes to our RAV group and to the podcast in general. I have decided to put our podcast on Patreon because I want to have knit-alongs and prizes and fun stuff for you guys. Back in the fall, I created my own hat pattern. I have not had the chance to write it up or publish it. I am not good with writing patterns. I tried to write it down and it It looks like a horrible algebra problem. Horrible. So anybody that's out there that is good at writing patterns that would love to help me out, please feel free to contact me. If you would like me to use your yarn in my knit pattern, please feel free to contact me and we can chat. I know I spoke about starting my own yarn dyeing and starting up dyeing yarn and selling it. With everything going on, I have not had the chance to do that. And I do plan to do that. And if you also followed me, I did go back to school to get my certified nurse's aid back again. And I did do that. And I passed my state test. So thank you for all the prayers and well-wishings and blessings and everything else. And I'm sorry, he's going to carry on and I don't know why. Yeah, so as I said, it's just been a whirlwind of chaos. I want to thank my mod that helps me out. She has been a blessing. Thank you so much. Because I know I'm not going to get the word right. My dog is definitely going to be a brat. So yeah, let's get into the knitting because that's what you came here for. They came here for the knitting, Bubby. This isn't a Z show. There's lots that I've been working on I haven't touched, but I'll show you most of it. One of the projects I'm doing, and it is a free pattern on Rav. I saw Silly Fru Wendy from the Sassy Pants Knitting Podcast. Hang on, let me open the door and let him in. Come on, Bubby. She decided to knit this. It's called the Workday Scarf. And it's designed by Sue Flanders. It's a free pattern on Rav. And I'm not giving anything away by showing this. But that's what it looks like. I am using some AC Moore dollar yarn. It's called Fashion 2 yarn. And it's this color. Ooh, the light is blowing it out. But it has, I want to say, stellina in it. It's metallic yarn, as you can see. Nothing special. I have 3 skeins of this, and it's 212 yards. It is on a 3.25, I want to say, mil needle. And my little buddy here wants to play with it because does anybody else's dog take their yarn and play with it? I wouldn't eat it because mine does, but this is where I'm at so far. I've been just working on this easy, mindless potato chip knitting. Yeah, that's what we get, but yeah. And it's being kept. I bought this bag on Wish, the website Wish, last year. Purposely just for like simple little knitting projects like this. I think the pattern says it's going to... One skein, 454 yards, but you can, I'm actually making it to be bigger than that, which is fine. It's a project that it's simple and easy that you can make it to be however big you want it. Yeah, we're trying to eat my bag. You wouldn't think he gets attention. So that's basically what I'm doing. We're talking to the people, Bubby. They want to hear what I've been knitting. They know you're around. I don't know why you're crying. Okay. Hang on, I'm sorry. Alright, sorry about that. We had to have a time. He had to have a timeout. Because he was just being a whole hot mess. Excuse me for the coughing. My next two patterns are the same pattern. One is just toe up and the other one is cuff down. And it's called the Strife Pattern by Laura Neal. I decided, if you follow Dan from the Bakery Bears podcast, he did a year-long knit-along making patterns out of sock architecture book by Laura Neal. And I have decided that I myself want to get better at knitting socks. If those who have been with me for ages, you know I hate to Kitchener. That's like, I go, because I don't like the Kitchener. And there's no reason I shouldn't like the Kitchener. It's not like it's hard to do. Well, the only way to get better at something is practice, practice, practice. And I want to get good at making a pair of socks that fit me. I was on Craftsy Unlimited, but being that there were a lot of changes in my life and financial changes, I am unable to keep up the Craftsy Unlimited right now. But I did buy the sock architecture book, and it is just a wonderful book, well written, and it helps you with making the perfect pair of socks. So with all that being said, here's the Strife, and this is a paid for pattern. It is out of her book. I recommend getting it. I purchased mine through Cooperative Press. They are wonderful to deal with. I had an issue where I couldn't download it, and I just messaged them and they fixed the problem right quick for me. So I highly recommend them. I would love to do a book review from them, but anywho, I'm digressing. But as I said, it's a paid for pattern. I would hope that you guys would love to spend the next year knitting socks with me from now until August 19th of 2019. I hope you guys will knit along with me and do this. As I said, I joined Patreon. I would like to do things for my Patreon members. And part of that is going to include the sock knit along. I have not decided what yet, but I would like to do something for you guys. This is, and even for those of you that are not able to join Patreon, I still want to do prizes for you guys and something for you guys that join me in the year-long sock quest. So this is the top down. It is, I believe, a simple one by one rib, I want to say, is the cuff. I'm not giving anything away by saying that. You guys can see it for yourself. But this is what the pattern looks like. I'm sorry I don't have any sock blockers handy. I can't find them. I'm in the midst of moving everything, my craft stuff, around. But that's what it's looking like. Didn't start to heal yet. And if you're wondering what these needles are, they are the Addy Flex Tips. They're the Flex Tips. I've heard mixed reviews about these from people, but I actually quite love them. They're awesome. It's like knitting magic loop, yet knitting on DPNs. It's like knitting on awesome DPNs that bend. I love DPNs, but I hate how they get I feel like I'm doing like this weird hand trick when I knit with them at times. They come 3 in a set, and if you've never seen the Addy Flex Tips, they look just like this, and they're awesome. I bought mine on Amazon Prime when I had Amazon Prime. The yarn that I am using is, I bought this at Joann's. It is Premier Yarns Deborah Norville in the colorway red, lot 5176. I have 2 skeins of this. I'm going to do the recommended cuff and toe for this. And this is just a progress marker of where I was when I started it and where I'm at now. I'm going to put another one. I also have this to remind me that it's my cuff. Or I'll be like, where did I start? Where did the cuff end and the sock start? Because I should have did a contrasting cuff, leg, heel, and toe. But I didn't. So that's that. And it's actually a very awesome pattern. I have the book and I also have the PDF download for it as well. So I tend to use both of them, the PDF and the book, just depending where I'm at. If I'm out, PDF. If I'm home, book. Alright. And that is in my bag from a homespun house. I got this a while back. I love this bag. Tea Time Mr. Bear. I would love to get another one made in this pattern. I just love it. Her bags are awesome. My other stripe sock is in my I Love Makeup bag. I bought this at Dollar General in the beauty section. $5. And this also is the stripe pattern, except it is toe up. And I have a hot mess going on. And I want to say these are also on Addie's, but I'm not 100% certain at this point. I want to say these are my sock rockets, but I'm not sure. I want to say they're sock rockets. But this is the stripe pattern, toe up. That's the front. My little jigger here reminds me that's the front, and this is the back. And my little sunflower tells me I'm on the back. This is Patton's Croy yarn, which I love. I've never used Patton's Croy. I got it at AC Moore. If you are on a budget, it is a pricey, it is a bit of a pricey yarn. Just so you know, I've had it in my stash for ages. It is Patton's Croy Meadow Stripes. Here's the information. I don't know if they still make this colorway. As I said, I've had it for ages in my stash. And I have 2 skeins of this, because I know 1 skein isn't going to make 2 pair of socks. That is the only downside. But I really love this yarn, working with it. If you previously followed me, you'll know. But if you're new, I am a big fan of Lion Brand. 1 pound makes a pair. 1 skein makes a pair of socks, I believe it's called. And of Red Heart's Heart and Soul socks, which I believe those 2 you can only purchase online. I'm not 100% certain if those companies still make those sock yarns, because it's been ages since I purchased it, so I could be wrong. The third thing I'm working on is a paid for pattern as well, and it's being kept housed in a bag I made me. It's one of my first project bags, so don't judge. That don't look good, don't judge. And if you judge, you judge. I don't care. I like it, and that's all that matters. The pattern came from Joann's. you can see, as I said, it wasn't perfect. I don't care. I learned how to make the bag myself, and your first few project bags and first few sewing projects, they always have imperfections, mistakes that you made, and that's okay, because nothing is perfect. That's just the way it is. Nothing's perfect. And even in my knitting, if the pattern is small, oh, and this is not sponsored by Penn State, just so you know. And if there's a tiny mistake in my knitting, I'm fine with that. I let it go, because nothing is perfect. The inside is lined just like the outside. The pattern I'm doing is loosely based on Kay Jones's blanket pattern called A Stitch in Time. She is one of the hosts of the Bakery Bears podcast, and she puts out lovely, lovely patterns. I'm trying to show this to you guys without giving anything away, because as I said, it is a paid-for pattern. It's called A Stitch in Time by Kay Jones, KF Jones. It is paid for. I am loosely basing this on her pattern. Right here, A Stitch in Time blanket. Except I am doing mine completely different. I am basing it on a quilt. I love the whole knitting a blanket that looks like a quilt. I think it's beautiful. I love quilts. I don't know how to sew a quilt to make a quilt. I don't know how to do that whole sewing a quilt thing. So I like the concept of knitting and crocheting a pattern that looks like a quilt, because I think they look awesome. And I'm loosely basing mine off I believe it's called a Friendship Star or a Friendship Quilt pattern like this. Sorry, my printer cut off the last part of the squares, but yeah. I am basically using, any knitter will tell you, you acquire a stash when you start knitting and crocheting. I have massive, massive amounts of yarn that were either gifted to me by my fairy yarn mothers, or I went out to a yard sale and I just bought a whole lot of yarn. And of course, purchasing online and going to festivals, you acquire. I don't have to explain to you how you get your stash. You know how you get your stash. And sometimes we need a yarn fix. So yeah, I have tons of yarn, and I have some of it's just one skein of yarn, nothing else to match it, just one skein, and maybe I can't buy more because they don't make it because it was gifted to me. It was leftover yarn that somebody gifted to me to use because they didn't want it, because I have people give me odds and ends of scrap yarn, which is fine. I love receiving scrap yarn and incorporating it into projects. I just love doing that. In addition to this blanket, I am making a Magic Cake log cabin blanket, as well as a Cozy Memories blanket. So this is the third blanket I have going. But anyway, so basically all I'm using is my one skeins of yarn that I did, just one skein, nothing else to go with them. They've been sitting in my stash. What do I do with them? There's plenty of one skein projects. I didn't find any that I like. And some of them are a hot mess to make maybe just a hat out of. And they complement other yarn. So, with further ado, I will show you where I am at. Excuse me. Here is one. And this is just all acrylic yarn. That's all. But this is one pattern. This is one quilt. Or if you sew, you will know this is considered one fat quarter. And then here is another. But I do have a little bit of a mistake in it, and I will tell you guys because I don't mind sharing my mistakes. Is this the right way? I have to look to make sure I have it the right way. Yes. If I don't, you'll figure it out. But here's the second one. And I did do a mistake here on the garter ridge, but that is okay. Or maybe it was over here. But anyhow, on one of the garter ridges, I made a mistake. Because silly me, because I don't want to give the pattern away, but I put the stitch marker on the wrong side and knit the border one too many. I knit the border the wrong way, basically. One side should not have this many on it. It should be less. But this is square number 2. This is square number 1. So here's number 1. And number 2. And when I show you guys again, they'll be in the right order. And then here's the third one that is in progress. Right here. I put it down just because I needed a break from it. It is fun and addicting, and I will be able to tell you guys if I have it in the right order, because it's aggravating. Yes, I got it. This is how it's supposed to go. And as I said, I knit the one garter ridge in the wrong spot. And then this is the third one I am working on. As I said, it's just scraps of yarn. Well, it's not scraps of yarn, but it's 1 skeins of yarn. I don't have nothing to make with them, so I am using them. Excuse me. As I said, I may not use the entire skein to finish what will be 1 square, and what's left of that goes into my scrappy yarn bin to either be made into a barn raising quilt, which is the 4th blanket I'm working on, or if it's not enough for that, it goes in the pile for my Magic Cake log cabin blanket. So yes, and it's all worsted weight yarn that I'm using. Thereabouts, it's worsted. So that is the only thing. As I said, it's based on Kay's Stitch in Time pattern, but not 100%. I slightly changed it and adapted it so that it's going to look like a quilt when it's done. So that's basically it. As I said, not much knitting, just a lot going on. Not much, as I said, not much knitting. And just that I've put our group on Patreon now. So keep on the lookout for Patreon news and join the Patreon group, because I truly love this podcast and I want to make it grow and I want to do more things with you guys. I'd love to do maybe a retreat with you guys, more prizes, more fun things. I have, and I'm sure you've heard from other podcasters, I absorb the cost of the podcast, what it costs to do things. I have had, thank you to many of my podcasting friends, I have had people send me donations, prizes, have sent me prizes to give away to you guys. and that is absolutely wonderful. Some of the prizes I have bought in the past out of my own pocket. But as I said, I absorb a lot of the costs for editing, making this podcast, and I decided to join Patreon because this isn't just about me. It's about all of us, about our community and our getting together. I'd like to make this grow, more monitors, more meetups, maybe Google Hangouts, virtual knit nights. I'd like to do things like that. Currently, I am not on iTunes. I am only found on, the podcast is only found on YouTube. I would eventually like maybe to get back onto iTunes. But for now, we're on YouTube, and I love YouTube. Nothing else exciting going on. Just that I also have made the decision, thanks to a very dear friend of mine. He helped me see the light, so to speak. I was saying about buying yarn to make more projects, and he's like, Nikki, come on. Do you see how much yarn you have? Do you see your stash? Do you realize how much you have? He goes, I know knitting and crocheting and spinning are your thing. He said, I don't care. He said, I know you love to do that. I know you love to knit. You love to crochet. You love to spin. Sadly, I don't have that much fiber, which I need to build a fiber stash. But anyway, I have a huge yarn stash. And he's like, Nikki, you really need to start using your stash. Instead of people asking, because this month is my birthday month, instead of telling people, oh, buy you yarn, he said, or you wanting to buy yarn, he said, why don't you start knitting and crocheting from your stash, getting that out of your way to make room for more. And he's right. And right now, financially, I can't buy yarn. I would love to, but financially, I can't. And I have a beautiful, gorgeous stash that I love dearly. So this year, and I'm going to start a thread for it called Year-Long Destash-Along, or something to that effect. I mean, I'm not destashing my yarn to get rid of it, but I'm using it, so maybe I should call it Year-Long Empty Your Stash. If you come up with a better name for it, please message me, and I will gladly change the title of the thread, because I'm not good at that. But yeah, I have a beautiful stash. And why not use some of that beautiful yarn? I have a cardigan that I want to start with yarn that I dyed up myself. And I want to use that. There's some jumpers or sweaters I want to reknit that I frogged them because they're too big on me from losing weight. So I want to start those. So yeah, that's basically what I have planned. I mean, if I am gifted yarn, I'm perfectly fine for that. The only yarn that is allowed to come into my stash, and I made this myself, is if it's gifted to me. Obviously. And gifted can be just yarn that was gifted to me. People giving me yarns to add to my cozy memory blanket, or my sock yarn blanket, well, my cozy memory blanket, my barn raising quilt blanket, my magic cake blanket, or my stitch in time quilt blanket. That I can do. If I'm making a project and I seriously run out of yarn for it and I don't have any more of it in my stash, if I win yarn in a prize, what else did I say? If I acquire more yarn to dye up, or I need to dye more yarn to finish a project, that is fine, but I am trying not to buy any yarn this year. So far, it's been a struggle because I love to go to yard sales, and yard sales have really great prices on yarn, and some has acquired to come home with me, and I deemed it okay because it's going to go into my blankets. That's what I'm telling myself, and I'm sticking to that. So I may purchase yarns at yard sales that I know could go into my lovely, lovely blankets. And maybe if there's a quantity worth for a cardigan or a sweater or a scarf or a cowl, which I hate that word, but a cowl or a shawl, then yeah, it can come home with me. I'm sticking to that. Okay, I'm sticking to it. So yeah. Nothing says I can't buy knitting needles, though. I can't create a stash of knitting needles. But this has run long enough, and I'm babbling, and I really need to let you guys go so that I can edit this and upload it. If you have any ideas that you think would be great for the podcast or for our RAV group and our Facebook group, please feel free to message me. You can, it's all in the beginning of the podcast, but you can email me at nickelosworldpodcast@gmail.com. You can send me a message on Rav. You can send me a message on our Facebook group. You know, I'm open to ideas. I'm open to suggestions. I'm open to knit-alongs. If you're interested in being a mod for our group, please contact me. I'd be more than happy to chat with you and add you as a mod. If you're good at writing knitting patterns, please contact me because I have a gorgeous hat pattern I want to put up and to put out, and I will also need test knitters eventually for that. But I truly hope you enjoy this podcast. I do try to keep my podcast to 30 minutes or less because I know there is a ton of other podcasters out there and your time is valuable and you like to do other things besides listen to me babble. So I apologize that episode 80 is long, but it was overdue and needed to be caught up. So I will see you guys again for sure next Sunday, and I hope I have more stuff and progress to show you guys. So good night, God bless, thank you, and I will see you again. And please be kind to one another and to each other. Bye.